Hello, beautiful souls. I am so excited that you guys are back here with me this week. Welcome to the Brittany Renee Experience podcast. Today, I have an incredible duo on, which I cannot wait to introduce. These two also have their own podcast, which will also be linked down in the description. But today we are speaking to Fem Tell All. And as usual, I'm going to toss it right over to them to share more about who they are and what they're doing.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. We're so excited to be on the podcast.
Yes.
And especially because we have our own podcast, as Brittany mentioned. But my name is Madison, Bellissimo.
And I'm Ruth Devereaux.
And we have a podcast on taboo subjects through a feminine perspective.
So we love that.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't
the two best things in the world combined.
No, truly. Things people don't want to talk about. And then from a woman's perspective, it's like, yeah, exactly. So we kind of started, I mean, I'm going to get back to the OG, how we started, which is a man, technically,
yes.
Which I kind of love an origin story for two female friends that have started through like bonding over a man or something like that. Not that you were involved with this man.
Not bonded at all with this person.
I had a crush on this person, but I was working with him professionally on a project that I was developing with another group of people. And he knew I was like drowning in all male colleagues. Yeah. And I was
the
like,
energy was strong.
Yeah. And I was drowning and I was like, I need a woman in this room ASAP or I'm going to go, insane. So he brought on Ruth to the project and thank God, because not only is she such a creative badass and like we couldn't have done it without her as far as continuing on and really developing it. But we ended up developing our friendship today. So that is something that I'm so thankful for. I don't know what your perspective is.
No, totally. I think that it was, when I walked into the situation meeting you for the first time, I had no idea I would end up with a lifelong friend.
Yeah.
And I think that it started, our friendship started first. We also worked together professionally it started professionally, went to friendship, and now it's a combination of both.
Which is the best.
Yeah. We said we work well together. Let's keep doing it for the end of time.
Yeah.
So we decided, so kind of what happened is we actually, again, got brought on another man.
So actually during the pandemic, as so many things happened during that time, one of my good friends had started a kind of like a network of different shows that he wanted to do on a YouTube podcast-esque type show. Mm-hmm. And they asked us to come on as the female voice of it. And then they noticed that most of their videos were not getting as many views as our videos that they were posting.
Yeah.
So then we kept hearing that we just had like this special sauce. We were able to connect with people over camera and we truly cared about what we were talking about. And then also just our dynamic was just spot on as it is.
Always. And it was really off the cuff too. Like a lot of the time that originally we were just coming on to help a friend. He really was just like, hey, you guys are both like, can talk about anything. You're smart. You're funny. Like, come on, I'm like complimenting myself. Like, you're smart.
It's very true.
But I'm like, that's what he was telling us. We were like, yeah, happy to. And we literally, all of the episodes that we jumped into, we had like no preconceived, like, we're not going to like hit multiple stuff. We were just like, yeah, okay. The general umbrella is this, or like, yeah, okay, we'll go into it. And I think it was just so, clear. So many people kept giving us feedback that's like, wow, your dynamic is so strong. You guys like feed off of each other so well. You have such like this charisma about you two. And that's why, our videos for his channel were playing more than his. And he was like, and he's so lovely and gracious enough that he, instead of being jealous about it, was like, I think you guys need to pursue this.
Yeah.
And we were like, no. We were like, what? We have so many things going on. We couldn't do that. And then it took us maybe 2 seconds of like, saying,
let's do it.
Actually, let's do it. And we've been developing Fem Tell All as a brand, as a show for about 3 years now. And we kind of soft launched it to friends and family first and colleagues.
Yeah.
And again, we were getting feedback, but we work so many jobs and so many odds and ends that, and careers, not just jobs, but we were like, okay, well, we'll get to it when we get to it, kind of thing. We were like, it will happen. And this year it's so cosmically just like smacked us in the face. I was like, we need to do it. Like we're shitting or getting off the pot. Like we're doing this. We're either buying the mics, investing all our money, doing all of this or not. Yeah. And so we took the leap officially in August of 2023. And
it's been a great ride so far. We've really, honestly, it's fun for us. Well, the things that we talk about on the podcast, we talk about amongst each other anyway. But I think we've always had this really open line of communication where as soon as we met, we had conversations that you wouldn't normally have with either somebody you're just meeting or even just a friend. Like I think a lot of times we cover up so much of ourselves to just have a point of view that we want people to see. Whereas we were always so open with each other. And then that allowed even people around us that were listening to open up as well, because they saw it wasn't a bad thing. It's a good thing to talk openly. It's a good thing to talk about things you're worried about or thinking that might be weird or that you're experiencing. And I think that made people around us comfortable. We were so comfortable doing it. And now we're able to do it on a platform that, from what we're hearing from other people, is making them feel comfortable with conversations or thoughts or feelings that maybe they didn't have before.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think that really is the like core.
It's like nucleus. The nucleus.
Yeah. You know, of our bond. And it's so funny because it really was so unspoken. Like I think we both are open books naturally, but we don't like divulge our you know, dirty secrets to everyone. And it was one of those things that like very early on in our friendship, we were like showing the skeletons in the closet just to kind of have a companion too. It wasn't even like trauma dumping. It wasn't anything of like, it was more just like, hey, this is something I don't really bring up a lot, but I'm kind of worried about this. Or like, have you guys gotten waxed before? Have you done that? You know, it's like, it could be as small as like just a thing that you're like,
or like even, I think sometimes like, I think one of the conversations we had was period sex.
Yes.
Like very early.
I was like, do you, how much have you fucked on your period? You know, like, and it was, I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship when I met her. So I had a different experience. You had you were in a relationship when I met you. And I had only slept with one person when I had met her. And so I was like really, because I was only in that long-term relationship. And I remember a lot of it, I was like, I think a lot of my friends were kind of in similar boats to me. So when I would talk about sex to them or anything taboo, some of them would clam up and I'd be like, okay, well, like they don't
and
have
then somebody 10 years older came along and I was like, I'll teach you. Let me show you the way.
No, truly. You had such a lovely, like, done that. And I was like, okay, like, like I was like, oh my God, like, should I fling around?
I'm like, do it. Have fun.
And it was just so encouraging on both accounts, I think. And so I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because we started our friendship unspoken, being really honest with each other. And then I think that honesty reads for others. And we've gotten so much feedback just from the podcast alone. We get texts weekly that we send to each other from friends, DMs, you know, comments from people that we've never met before from different countries that are like, I really loved the perspective of this. You guys approach subjects in such a like loving way. And so that's the goal. We just want to keep doing that. We want to build our community that we know is out there. Like, I think that's it's so big for us. We're like, it's out there. We're just waiting for us to connect with those people.
And I think community being the operative word here. Like, I think that even meeting with you earlier, Brittany, and talking about like the goals of the next year and like thinking about like, for us, we really want a community. We want to create that safe space for women. We want to have those open doors and conversations and like really make people feel cared for.
Yeah. And like the whole emphasis on femininity here is not only does that not tie to one gender. Of course, we've been talking about women specifically, but it doesn't tie to any one gender. And I think so often femininity is overlooked as something that's weak or not as attractive. And we're here to tell you that's fucking bullshit. And when we lean into our femininity and when we embrace it, that's when we feel like the magic come through. So that's where we're like trying to talk about the taboo subjects from a feminine perspective. And all of our guests are going to be that too, no matter their gender, no matter their sexuality, no matter what. We want to bring it through a feminine lens. So that's us.
Y'all who are listening and watching, I'm sure you're just already lit up because their energy is so magnetic. So I want to share too how I found you guys. So you guys have, if you've been a part of the podcast, you heard Secondhand Therapy. They were a couple guys that we had on. It's been a few weeks now, and they're incredible. And after the podcast, they reached out to me and they were like, I don't know if you've heard of Fem Tell All, but your guys' vibe is just so on point that like we have to connect you. I'm like, yeah, sure, that's fine. It's great. I'm always about connections. And as soon as I talked to these two on the phone, I hung up the phone and I was like, yep, this is happening. There is something really magical here. And we just did work together. So one of the things that I offer clients and all of that is business template work. And so I wanted to kind of share my magic a little bit with these two. So they knew a little bit about me too, since they were new to my sphere. And I just want to say the soul level contract that these two have is going to birth nothing but magic because of who they are. Not only is they're humans who you can hear and feel, but their souls are just on fire for this mission. And it's literally your mission to do this, which makes it just like my womb is just like all lit up. It's just like so yummy. It's so great. And the femininity, I am such a believer in, it does not matter if you are born male or female. Femininity is the superpower. Period. Masculine is the action. Femininity is the superpower. And it's like, if you can't embrace that in your own way, you're literally missing like one of the biggest links to manifestation, abundance, happiness, pleasure, like all of the things that are actually amazing about the human experience, right? So I love that that's something you guys are touching on too. I would love for you to share, what is something, so for listeners who don't know Fem Tell All, okay, don't know you guys, like who is the ideal group? Like who do you want to create these communities? Because I really hear you speaking about communities. So like who is in that community, right? So people, if they're listening, they're like, yep, that's me.
Yeah, no, that's such a great question, Brittany. Thank you. You want to take it up?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, like, I think and I don't want to speak for you, so I'll let you speak as well. But like, I think for me, it's going to be any woman, period, for sure. Like I feel like we don't have enough support as women. And so many times we're taught to go against each other as women. So as women as a whole, but also anybody that feels disparaged in any way, anybody that feels they're silenced in any way or pushed down in any way. I think what we want is really to be a support system in totality for people that feel like they don't have it. And we often forget when we are surrounded by so many great people that if we're blessed to have friends like we have, like you forget there's some people out there that are very lonely, that don't have the family, that don't have the connection. And I don't want anybody to feel like that, because in a world where you're supposed to live in a network, like if you feel alone, that can be worse than death. Like that's what we want to like provide for the people that don't have that.
Yeah. I'm just going to say that Ruth can always speak on my behalf. We're so in line that I'm like, go ahead, baby girl. Like, you got it. But I'll piggyback on that because I co-sign all of that. I think one thing that really resonated with us when we were kind of coming up with how we wanted to introduce ourselves is we're both the youngest, not only sibling, but daughter too. So I know that but I just want to say, but we're not like the only daughter in our family. And I think that is something that even though we have older sisters, we wanted to be an older sister figure to a lot of young women specifically. I think like that's where the sex conversations come in, the body care conversations come in, the like dating conversations come in, because it's like, how many times did we feel like we wanted to lean on our older siblings, and we have, and you have such a great relationship with your siblings as well do I, but we have a big age difference between our siblings too. And sometimes that can be a hard to tap into. And sometimes they're almost too close to the situation where they're protective over you, that they want to be like, don't date anyone. And you're like, wait, I'm in my early go out to the club, let me, and we want to be the like matriarchs in that way of like, not only like maybe like a mom figure, the like best stepmom figure, the older sister. We're like the woman in your life that has been through maybe things that you haven't been through, or we're going through something that you've already been through and we're helping you process it out loud. And maybe especially the ugly things that you don't want to admit to your friends, your family. And especially like you touched on the people that feel lonely at home and feel like they can't connect, they feel like that they're so petrified of giving up the like skeletons in their closet that they will not say anything. And that's where I think podcasts are really such a beautiful platform, because it is a conversation between 3-4 people, whoever, is in there, but one of the users is not implementing, or they're implementing on their own terms. And I think that is so helpful. There was a podcast that I listened to growing up, where it was 2 women talking about sex. And I remember it being so freeing for me, because there would be things that were so out of my scope. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even thinking about that or talking about that. But it was so good to hear some of these more like taboo subjects where I was like, oh shit, wow, women are so fucking cool and they're out here doing all these things. And and I think same with, we really have one thing when we were in beta that I talk about is when we were sending it to a lot of our guy friends, like straight males, they were like, we did a sex episode and we got multiple guys come back to us and be like, that was really informative. And we were like, that's exactly what we want,
And then my mom said, why do you have to talk about that?
Bella, I love the family's input on things. Like, it's the best.
It is. And, sometimes that can be hard, but like, I think what really made us light up is when those guys were coming to us and saying that was so informative. And I'm like, see, it shouldn't be taboo for women to talk to men about sex. It doesn't have to be like, oh, we're only, we sexualized, like funny enough. So I'm like, please go ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt you. I wanted to say just like, thank you for doing this, because, I'm very open personally. And like anyone who's in my orbit and sphere knows there is no filter ever in Brittany Renee's orbit. However, my podcast, us here, I am bringing just like all the connections, all the webs, all the people, all of the like leaders, and exactly like what you guys are doing. And we only get to talk about these topics in little spurts when I have beautiful open souls like y'all come on, right? So I just wanted to say thank you, because this is so important. And I really think, which I'd love to kind of hear anything else you guys want to say on this piece and talk next a little bit about relationships, because we have to break this cycle of shame and silence in any dynamic, like specifically woman to woman, right? It's like, there's kind of, I think, this societal, like boys having their time, right? Or men having their time, and they like talk about their partners or talk about sex. But I'm like, even that needs to be up leveled, right? But it's like to have a friend and a community and a podcast that you can lean into and be seen and witnessed and not feeling crazy or weird or shameful. And it's just like, this is what it is. Like, this isn't taboo. Everybody talks about this to themselves. So why are we not talking about it together?
Exactly. No, I'm so glad you brought up shame.
Yeah. We talk about that a lot. And like, I think that it is normalizing any conversation, right? Because the worst, when you really struggle with any thought or problem, is when you only think about it and talk about it in here, because it's just this narrative that's going back and forth. There's no outside source to pull you back down and say like, this is normal. This is okay. You're allowed to feel this way. You're allowed to question this. Like, you're allowed to like go through this process. But if it's just in here, the shame lives in there with it. And so the conversation is overlaid with shame. Therefore, you're never going to escape it. You have to let it out.
Totally. I fully agree. And I'm so glad. Thank you for creating this platform and letting us come on.
And thank you. Thank you for letting us come on. Thank you for sharing your space with us.
Yeah, we so appreciate it. And and you're right. It's women championing other women. Yeah. And I think there is so much, the patriarchy, in general pins us against each other. Yeah. So when you're not in competition, like the beauty that and we're really the example of it, I'd like to say, is like the beauty of like, there's no competition between us at all. Like we are I'm her fucking biggest fan. She's my biggest fan. I'm the first person to be like, I'm swine compared to this woman. And then I'm like, no bitch. No. And I'm not like deprecating in that way. Like that's how highly I see her. Like I view myself very highly, but that's how highly I see her, and that is something, it's like her wins are my wins. Yeah. Like that's how it should be. Like, and like the true love that you can experience and platonically from a partner like this, I can't recommend it enough. And it's going to make me emotional, but it's truly like, I'm emotional. Yeah, I'm a better person because of the people in my life that have opened up in this level to me and like let me be myself and be like the mess and the success. And because some people don't realize that like that is just as important as celebrating you at your worst, is celebrating you at your best.
I will say, and I think I've talked about this on our podcast before, but I was in a pretty toxic relationship that I would also consider abusive, and I became very secretive when I was in it because I didn't want people to know what was going on. And I remember not wanting to talk about it with anybody, and her saying to me one day, she's like, you're not required to tell me anything, but just know like I'm here to listen and like I'm ready to talk when you are. And that made me feel so safe with her during one of the worst like relationships I've ever been in, that I came to her with everything afterwards, because I knew like she would not judge me. She would still support me even when I was making the bad decisions to stay.
Yeah. And it is always so consensual, like if you're not giving consent, like if she in the midway of telling me this conversation about this horrible thing or this horrible relationship was like, actually, this is making me uncomfortable. I don't want to talk about it or anything like that. Like, you're going to have someone on the other side that's like, all right, whenever, if ever you want to share that. And you're right. It usually makes you open up and like, and it wasn't a tactic by any means, but it was, I was like, if she wants to tell me, she wants to tell me. If she doesn't, she doesn't. And like, you have to just kind of trust your friends and trust your people in your life to come to you if they need you, but you have to give them that platform. You have to give them that stage of being like, hey, I'm here for you literally whenever. I remember like, this kind of correlates to what I was saying about the big sister, the matriarch. Like, I remember my aunt telling me, I'm really close with all my family and close with my aunts and uncles. But one of my aunts came to me when I was like 15, 16. And I remember she knew I wasn't a partier. She knew I was like so straight edge, like straight A student. And she was like, if you ever get fucked up and you're at a party and you don't know what to do and you're drunk, call me. She was like, I will pick you up. I don't care what time. She's like, you don't have to explain anything to me. You don't have to say sorry. I want you safe. And like, that's how we are, it's like, emotionally we want you safe and physically we'll be your DD emotionally.
But it's so true. And you know what this is too, is like, this is unconditional love. And this is what we are all here to help usher in our own spaces, and for you guys, it's a lot of sisterhood, but it's also just a lot of circle, right? Because this obviously is also super beneficial for masculines. Yes. And what a beautiful space for them to come in and be able to witness, via the podcast, like, well, these are things I haven't talked about, or I don't know about, or like, I'm scared to be like this. And this kind of segues into what I wanted to lean into next is I would love to hear your experiences and or opinions around sacred union or divine kind of unions, because this is something that for me, since I started awakening, was huge. I was like, I want this unconditional, just like I have with my girlfriends. Like, I want to be able to sit there and talk about anything and be messy and be big and be however I need to be. And it's been this search for me. And the last relationship that I just came out of, I like 150% thought was my person. I was like, both feet in the boat, let's go. We won't get into those details in this moment, but that was not what happened. And
sorry,
it's been a process. And I actually shared super openly on my social media, like of me just in full breakdown, like at airports and in grocery stores, because for me, like one of my pieces of mission is showing people like, be messy, like just take the fucking mask off and just be however you are.
Yeah.
And it helped immensely me really move through the grief faster. However, Spirit really called me into this, going to this event in Salt Lake City, which this is like, I don't know, 3 weeks after I had split up with my partner. And I'm like, am I in a space to like go do this? Like, can I show up in a business way right now? And like, am I in a space to do this? And everything was like, you have to go, you have to go, you have to go. Someone is there, you have to go. And I'm like, I am not here for another boyfriend. I am not here for another partner. I am like so inward right now. But I listened and I knew and trusted there was someone who was going to unlock something for me at this space. So I ended up networking. It was with this whole group, Lions Not Sheep. I don't know if you guys have heard of them. They're like a really big group just around entrepreneurship, relationships, all that. Anyways, they have this thing called Lions Den Live. And so I'm there. Jordan Peterson was one of the speakers and he is incredible. And so that was like a selling point already too. And there were a couple other speakers who were incredible as well. So I networked in our community of Lions Not Sheep because I was a part of that community with just like, hey, I'm coming solo. Like, who's there? I was just doing my network thing. And I ended up meeting a couple people that still I'm in contact with. They're great community of people. But the day that we had day one in the event, it was in this huge theater in downtown Salt Lake. I got all dolled up because I'm like, I am putting like all the best foot forward of today. I run to the restroom. I like dropped my bag, run to the restroom. I come back and there is a severely handsome man sitting next to me. And I'm like, you were not there before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just kind of had that like, oh, okay, whoever this is someone. And so I sat down and we introduced ourselves and he was also there by himself. And I'm like, you know, what got you here? All this stuff. He's like, I don't know. Something just told me I had to come. And he's like, by the way, I saw you earlier in registration and I saw you walk by and I was like, whoever that is has the best style and I need to talk to her. And I was like, thank you. All in my receiver of my feminine, right? Long story short, we end up going through, as you guys know, Jordan Peterson, right? There were a couple other, like just being in events like that, which I'm sure you know, it's like your whole being just gets rocked in the best way. So we're listening about relationships and marriage and union and breakups and business and entrepreneurship and just all of these things. So by lunchtime, I'm like, everybody who was around us, we've all talked at this point. I'm like, let's just all go grab juices or smoothies. You know, there's a place across the street. So this guy's name is Stanley. So we start talking and I'm just like, tell me more about you. Like, I just like am magnetized to your energy. And the beautiful thing was that I'm still not in the space right here of like, we're going to date. This is going to be anything romantic. I'm just like, your energy is like magnetic. And he got so vulnerable, like so quickly. He was like, yeah, I was in this relationship. I thought it was my person. The storyline of my ex and his ex was like wildly on point. And so I was just kind of sitting there listening and, you know, I shared my stuff with him. And later on in the weekend, we end up going out with a group. Well, half the group ends up leaving and it's just him and I at this little bar. And he's like, well, let's just grab dinner. Like, it's cool. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. So we're sitting there and we had this conversation that healed me to levels I didn't even know I needed. Because he's sitting across from me and we're in this like low lit little bar. It's super like cozy. And he's just like, who are you as a partner? Like, and I'm like, excuse me, sir. And we just start talking about, right. I'm like, he's like, what do you want? Like, what do you want? You know, and then he starts sharing, you know, I want this and I do need this and I show up in this way. And like,
wow.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Right. And I am just like holding the table half the time he's talking because I'm like, who are you?
Seriously.
And he was so complimentary, but in such a way that not once did I feel he's trying to get with me. He's trying to cross, like he was so respectful, like just all the things. And I'm like, I went home that night and I literally got in bed and I was like, just sitting with spirit. I'm like, thank you so much for making me come here because the conversation that I just had is something I didn't even know was possible with someone, and much less this like tall, dark, handsome man that just randomly came to this event. So, and by the end of the weekend, before I left, he's like, hey, let me take you to the airport. I'm like, yeah, that's great. And he's like, do you have time? Because I know we like talked about maybe going hiking, but we're not going to have time to hike, but do you have time to like let me take you somewhere. I'm like, okay. Literally drove me up to this like ski lodge mountain thing, I don't know, in Utah, just because he wanted to show me like the mountains. He's like, I just want you to see this. I know you like love this. You're conscious, you're spiritual, like earth goddess. We get up to the top and I'm like, he's like, hang on, I got to jump out real quick. I'm like, okay, cool. So he like goes behind the truck. I'm sitting there texting my friend and I'm like, I just can't believe like the experience that I've had this weekend. Like, I'm just like, my heart is exploding with just how unattached and sovereign and sweet and authentic like this whole exchange is. He comes back in the car with these wildflowers and he was like, I knew that these were somewhere. And he's like, I come here like to ski and stuff. And he's like, but these wildflowers, like, I just want you to take them because I need you to remember that even if I never see you or talk to you again, there are men who want to serve you, who want to see you, who want you to grow, who want you to be big. And I need you to take these and remember at least that. And I want you to just know, P.S., they're sitting. I dried them because he's like, put them in a book on the way home. Because I'm like, how am I going to keep these? He's like, press them, like put them in a book. So I put them in this little book with these napkins and I pressed them and I came back home and I'm just like in so much process. And it was like a week later, my son had picked something up and the flowers fell out and I completely forgot that they were in there. And I'm like, and it was exactly that moment that I needed to remember like all of what he just told me up on this mountain. And now I have them sitting here always. And they're my little like reminder. Wow. But I was just like, blown away. So now I'm like, that was everything I needed to experience from a masculine to remind me that the toxicity I just walked out of is actually nothing in comparison to what I can have with someone.
Absolutely.
So I want to know all about your thoughts on divine masculinity, relationships, all of the things.
There's so much to get into.
Yeah. First of all, us at Fem Tell All love.
Yeah.
So you just like brightened our days and our spirits so much with that story.
Lover girls.
That is incredible.
No, true.
Men, please take note. It like to me, like that doesn't seem like it should be that difficult for many men to be able to show up in that. Right? It shouldn't be. And I guess the only thing that I can kind of say in conjunction with that is I think that I believe that you can love somebody the moment you meet them, because I think when your energies can align and you can connect in certain ways, I don't think it takes time periods that we've said that it takes. I think to know somebody, it takes time. You want to go through that process and like to make those like big life decisions together. But to love someone, I think you can love them instantly because I think you can feel somebody instantly. And I think that that's so beautiful that you experience that. And I definitely feel like we need an update of if you guys have spoken. I can't proceed in this conversation till I know.
I love that. Yeah, I'm like, I did not expect to share that whole story, but Spirit was like, it's time. Stan is amazing. We do communicate. He actually just sent me a hilarious meme. We've reached the point of friendship that now he just sends me these hilarious memes on Instagram. We have talked about getting back together and doing something. Like when I left, he's like, you know, when it's snowing, I'd love for you to come up here and like, we'll do the ski lodge and all this stuff. But it's been so detached. Like we FaceTimed, we've kept in touch, but it's just been very like, you do you, I'm doing me. And if we cross paths, amazing. And if we don't, like amazing. And it's, again, even that, I'm like, I feel like sometimes you meet these people and then we attach this like, oh, well, that was magical. That means he's my person and I have to make this happen. And it's like, or we just had an incredible weekend together that was healing for both of us. And it's our reminder that like, people like this are out there. Like he even was talking to me about what I was sharing. And he's like, you're like the prime woman. Like the fact that you're single is kind of like mind blowing to me right now. And I'm laughing. I'm like, yeah, I'd like to say that too. But like, apparently I'm just a big illuminator. And he's like, well, people who are like you, who illuminate and you're very knowledgeable in things like trauma and inner child, and you're a psychic. So there's that whole thing. He's like, it can be really intimidating to men who aren't really fully in their masculinity and like able to have a powerful woman. He's like, you're a powerhouse. And so if you have someone who can't let you be a powerhouse, that's a problem. And I'm like, oh, this was my former relationship. And, so it's, to answer your question, we're not like fairy tale together right now or anything, but I'm sure there will be paths crossed again.
Do love that though. I think that I want to kind of like expand on that thought a little bit more, because I think so much we fall into the romance of it all, right? We fall into like, okay, like now there has to be a next step and a next step and a next step. Whereas like sometimes maybe it is just what you needed at that moment to let you know to continue forward so that you don't halt your process. Mm-hmm. And so like, I love that thought, because like sometimes what you could instead view it as is like, oh, it's not going anywhere, just another like letdown. Like, but instead of that, flipping that perspective, like really almost brings more joy and like excitement for what that next thing could be, because you're looking at it differently. I love that.
I totally agree. I mean, and I also love the idea of like, I want something more to happen with Stan, because I'm romantic. but there is something to say about people proving to you that they're, especially coming out of a traumatic experience or something like that. I had a very similar experience this year where I was like 10 toes down in a relationship where I was like, this man, wow, I would have never picked him, not out of a fucking lineup, even slightly. But this man he's divine. He was supposed to be here for me. Like, we connected so well. My family loved him, the whole thing. He ended up being a complete liar and was like, the shebang, manipulator, cheater, all narcissist, you know. And it's unfortunate, it happens. But I think the remainder of this year has been me dating people just to kind of a monthly reminder, because I need it, that I'm not out here taking crazy pills, that there are men that truly care about my well-being and would take care of me and things like that, and lean into their divine masculine. Like you're saying, like, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh my God, I have someone in my life like that. Like, I have a man that we've had this star-crossed lover. Like, we've met we met when I was 19, and we met in a club, and like we stayed in contact for 7 years, and we only reconnected last year. And he's had conversations with me before where he's like, maybe it's us, maybe it's us. And I'm like, I don't think that. Like, I love you, and I would be so lucky to be your partner. Anyone, as any woman would be. Like, he's truly divinely masculine. Like, he is 6'4", big, like, but he couldn't hurt a fly. Like, he's just like this guy, and he is kind, he is gentle, he is charismatic, he's brilliant. And I'm like, yeah, no, I have no qualms with him, and we have such a good dynamic. And we even played house for 2 weeks when he came out here to visit me, where I was like, this would be fun.
Love that.
But I'm like, I don't think we're meant. Like, I think what we were meant to teach each other are so many lessons, because we've had this relationship spanning over 7 years now of a connection. And every time we reconnect, like, because sometimes we'll have to fall off because we go into relationships, and we're respectful of that. It's not that we can't be friends, but we are very good about being respectful to each other. And every time we reconnect, it is so divine. It is so like, oh, you feel like home. Like, I have such a good connection with you, and I have nothing bad to say about this guy. And I think about that a lot, where I'm like, why don't I love him in the way, like, I do believe in soulmates. I do believe in that divine connection. And I think he is one of my soulmates in the way of, like, I was meant to meet him so he could teach me certain lessons about myself, and show me that there are men that, like, are truly like the whole package out there, but maybe not the whole package for me, for someone else, And so I'm not saying that Stan is that, but like, even if that's the consolation prize, that like Stan, like you said, had such a healing conversation with you, I get it. Like, and I went on a first date like a month ago, and I was like, that's the best first date I've ever been on. And unclear if I'm going to see this man again. Like, there's been talk, and we don't know if we're going to see each other. I was like, but that was a healing moment for me, where I was like, it was such an all around great date. He treated me super well. I was so attracted to him. I found him so lovely and smart and successful and all these things. And I usually feel like there's some level where I like don't feel as much of that, where I'm like, yeah, we're compensating, but it's okay, because they're a great package. But like, this guy was like, I'll sign now. I was like, where do I sign? I'm ready. But that was so healing too, because it was like, oh, okay. Yep. There are men out there that will treat me like this, that will make me feel like this, and be able to hold that, because I am a powerful woman too. And I know you do. And it's taken us so long. I mean, you have your partner now that like holds the space for your power. Right. But like, we've dated plenty of men.
Well, I'll tell you, kind of like going back to like having somebody in your life that's not meant for you, but like I was married years ago, and I am still best friends with this person. And I started dating him when I was 19. We were together for 13 years. Then we separated, but now we've known each other for over 20 years, and we are the best of friends, and he is my family. And what I thought at first was supposed to be a romantic partnership, we now look back on, now that I'm in my new partnership, and I'm like, this is the first time I've ever like truly been in love. And he's like, it's so weird that we were together for so long and never realized we didn't have that with each other, because we loved each other, but we were not in love with each other. And so like
such a difference.
It's such a big difference. But it's also very easily mistaken. Like if you love somebody, especially if it's if you're in if you're a man, woman, or like whatever kind of partnership that you're choosing to be in, if that person is of the same sex that you're attracted to and you feel love for them, sometimes it's easy to think that maybe it's a romantic love, and it's not.
And I think the thing at the end of the day is a lot of the time we go like, well, it feels meant to be, and it was. Like it's still meant to be, but you don't have to romanticize it in the way of like, oh, so because I was meant to meet this person, blah blah blah, it doesn't mean that that's your person. Like that's not your divine connection, you know. Like because I think about that all the time, and I am a huge believer in soulmates of friends. Like there are multiple friends of mine that I'm like, I literally could have not gotten through this life without them. And sometimes they have eras, right? Like sometimes they are not in your life the entire time, and sometimes you're lucky enough and they are. But like that I'm like, you're not getting one for me. I'm like, sign, I'll give you my blood. Like, I'm done. I'll be like Angelina Jolie, wear a violet. I'll do it. Like, but I'm like, I truly believe in that. I believe in the connections like you're talking about. And I really hope like she said, us at Fem Tell All, we love. So we're like,
well, I think it like varies too, right? Because like we talk about like meeting people that to give us something that we need at that time, like that can even be bumping into somebody on the street.
Oh yeah.
Or like you're getting a telemarketer call, or like whatever that is. Sometimes there's interactions that are so like minute, but they actually make an impact on you. And like those equate to something that maybe we're not even like recognizing, but it's like channeling us on our journey.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And, I think that's what's so beautiful about just the journey of the human experience is when you really just get in your authenticity to a level that is unshakable, right? You're like, I know who I am. I know what I want. I know why I'm here. When you start to drop the densities, as in like people, places, and things that aren't aligned with that, it is really a ride. Like it's really a ride. And I mean, even piggybacking on the like, just, one person having whatever. So I was on a podcast actually on the Conscious Awakening Network with Brandon Thomas. And we ended up finding each other randomly on Instagram. Like he had liked something or reshared something that I posted. And when people reshare my stuff, I like to be like, hey, thanks for the share. Like just kind of acknowledging like I saw and I appreciated it. Well, he tells me like his wife and him like pass my TikToks back and forth. He's like, oh, you're in our house. Like we know you. And I saw he had a podcast, and I was like, I would love to come on and like talk to your podcast and all this stuff. Like I'm really trying to break into the podcast world. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. Like, so we set this stuff up. This was back in like June, this past year. He didn't have anything until like the end of July. And I was like, totally fine. No big deal. Like it's all good. It gives me time to get like I was rebranding my whole business. So I'm like, that's great. Cause then I'll be like ready. So I was like, first like spirit nod, like, yes. Okay. So we get through the summer, get into the podcast, and this podcast was so illuminating to so many things. Like it was just, I felt for the first time in a very long time, I'm where I'm supposed to be. Like speaking again, sharing just so openly about all the things. And my partner at the time, was listening to it and he was like, you're going to have your own podcast. And I was like laughing. I'm like, I know that's on like the bucket list, right? Like that's what I'm hoping for. And he's like, no, like you're flawless when you speak. And he's like, you're magnetic. And he just kept going on and on about me having a podcast. And I was like, okay, babe, like, yeah, thanks. Well, flash forward like 3 weeks after I do this podcast, my partner and I have this whole thing. And I was like, I love you enough to let you go. Like, it's not what I want to do, but like, I can't like this, just my nervous system's rocked. So we split and Spirit is like, you have to call Brandon. And I'm like, what? Like, I know Brandon from like one Instagram conversation, the like booking the podcast. And then yes, we said together like this, but like, I don't know Brandon. But again, I'm like, I trust myself. And so I messaged Brandon and I'm like, this is going to sound super crazy, but I'm like in a really interesting space. I just separated from my partner and Spirit was like, you need to call Brandon. So he's like, call me. So I like pick up the phone. I'm a mess. I can't like stop crying. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just like, I'm supposed to be in Florida, moving into my new house that my partner and I just bought tomorrow. And I'm in full breakdown because like all of this just happened. And Brandon his energy is so grounding and so calming and just amazing. And for those of you that are on the CAN network, please go watch Expanded Reality. He's incredible. Shameless plug. Anyways, he's like, just book a ticket. Just come down here. You can stay with like my wife and I. We've got a few acres. Like we're down in Texas. Just come here. I'm like, okay, no idea. Let's just go. And so I booked this ticket for the next morning. I literally had like anxiety. I couldn't sleep. I was like having a panic attack on the way to the airport. And I was like, what is happening? By the time I get to Texas, I'm just like so exhausted, but also energized because I'm like, cool, I get to meet, this really cool guy. He's incredible energy. And he's telling me him and his wife have been crying all day. He's like, there's so much emotion about you being here. Like, I just don't know. I don't know. And I get in the car, he gives me a hug and he's like, I just want you to know you're safe. Like, whatever you need to be, you're safe. You're just safe to be. And I'm so glad you're here. And we're so glad you're here. And it was like, that was the first masculine nod of like, wow, I like didn't know how much I needed to hear that. And he and his wife held me all weekend, just let me be in my space. I was like out on their grounds, just having my breakdown. And I ended up doing some work for them too while I was there. But it was this, again, just random weekend. I've never met this person. Like Spirit's like, you just have to like go do this. And that weekend, he literally started just catalyzing this podcast for me. He's like, you need to talk to so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And he's like FaceTiming and calling. And he is like the connector of connectors. And now flash forward, he talked to the owner of the CAN network and was like, Britany needs to be a host. Like we need to have her on. So I meet with her and she's like, yeah, it's wonderful. We love it. Like, do you want the Monday spot? And I'm just like, in the most grief I honestly have ever experienced in my adult life. Simultaneously, all these amazing connections are happening. I wanted a podcast. It was in my 3-year plan. Now it's like getting delivered into my lap. And I'm like, what is happening right now? They were all those little things that it was just like, do this random podcast that you met with this person on Instagram, like be at this random place in Texas, right? And it's like, now I'm looking back and I'm like, my expansion couldn't have happened if I didn't step out of that partnership that I was 15 feet already deep in. And I was like, this is my person. I want to do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like I see it. And it's, for anyone listening, like if you are in a space where you are catalyzing into these spaces where you're like, I don't know why God, Spirit, my higher self is telling me to like do this or do this, just listen, like just trust yourself, because I would love to hear any stories from y'all. But like my journey since the end of this relationship has been wild. And like Salt Lake City was 2 weeks after the Brandon thing. So it was just like one thing after another. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like this experience is just crazy to me continually. But it's like, you never know who you need, who you're going to meet, like where you're going to meet them. And they can deliver you medicine that you didn't even know you needed until you're sitting there receiving it. You're like, oh, okay.
I think that the one thing I've learned, because I think I had a somewhat similar experience after I got out of my bad relationship, things started taking off for me. things like just started happening. My career sped up, projects I had been working on started coming to fruition. Like, I was just so much happier. I was so much healthier, and it happened so much. And I was even telling Madison, I was like, yeah, at one point I was so scared I was going to lose it all, because it was like everything started becoming so good. But I really think that this is why I think it's so important who you choose as a partner is so important, because that energy is around you so consistently. If it's the wrong energy, it affects everything. That I think that you're rewarded for making the decision to say, this is the wrong energy, this is the wrong place. And then once you clear that path, then things align for you. Mm-hmm. But you have to first set that structure of like, this isn't right for me, I have to get out of it for things to align. Otherwise you can't, like using the word you use, expand. You can't grow, you can't move forward if you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think, you know, and we've talked about it before as far as like, yeah, when you give up a partner, and even when like you were dating someone briefly before she met her current partner, and there was nothing really inherently wrong, like, you know, good guy, they had some snafus here and there, but you guys like could have easily kept dating.
Sure.
And, yeah. But it was something that you were like, no, not for me. And like, I think the universe does really, you know, reward you. And making those like very hard decisions, like you said, like letting your person go, being like, I love you so much that I'm going to let you go. I think we really are so rewarded for those sacrificial, you know, decisions.
Well, like if those, like sometimes those lines aren't so easy too. Like getting out of my relationship was very clearly like, you have to get out of this, but sometimes it's a lot more muddled because it's not so, I don't know all the exact reason that you guys decided, but like sometimes it's a lot harder because you're like, I do care about this person, but something's wrong. And it's recognizing that and then valuing yourself to say like, it's not enough. I want more, or I need this, and they just can't provide it.
Yeah. No, that's such a good point.
Yeah. You know, and it's been so therapeutic in one hand because the podcast and all the podcasts I've guested on at this point have like the relationship comes up, right? Because it's been this relationship was such a catalyst point for me. And so I know I've healed a lot because I do still grieve some points, but I'm in much more gratitude than anything because I have been stepping into this like big energy of like, I want a luxurious life. I want, you know, all of the freedom financially. I want to be able to serve on a level that is just like so expansive that I can reach the masses, that I can help people be seen. And like piggybacking on what we talked about earlier, it's like so many people feel so alone right now. Like 2020, I think illuminated a lot, right? And since then, it's like mental health. It's been more talked about that it's not okay. Like people aren't okay right now. And we're in the great awakening of spirituality and people are waking up and they're starting to hear and feel and see things. And they're like, I'm crazy. And, you know, that's my like tagline. I'm like, you're not crazy. Like you're not crazy. But my yearning though is to speak to the masses. Right. And so when I met this partner, he was actually a client of mine. Mm-hmm. And for me, like the client boss or not boss, but client coach kind of relationship was like, I can't, right? I'm my own boss. That's where my brain was going. Like, I'm my own boss. I'm going to self-police myself here. And when he approached me, it was such an organic and kind of like random approach outside of him being my client. He was just like, your story is really incredible. Like, I love your story. And I just published my first book and I'm looking to help publish some people. And I just think it'd be really cool if you wrote a book. I'm like, okay, yeah, like, let's talk. So we get on a call and for like 2 hours, I just shared everything. And anyone who knows me, we can talk about anything. I will tell you all of the skeletons. Like, it does not matter. I am fully embodied in who I am. And so I shared very openly and vulnerably with him. And a couple of weeks later, we had kind of just started texting because we had agreed like, he's going to back the book. And I'm thinking like, great. I don't know anything about writing a book. So he's like, I'll help you. It's fine. So we just start talking more as friends. And of course, I'm like, he's handsome. He's well-established. You know, he's older. I like older men. Like, okay. But the whole time I'm like, this is business. This is business. This is business. And I was really clear in that line. However, I went to New York City in January and he lived up in New Hampshire. And I'm like, hey, like, if you just want to come down and get dinner or coffee or something so we can actually meet in person, like, I'd love to just have a moment with you. And his response was like, well, I'm kind of in this like situation with this woman that I have to. And I was like, I just want you to know, like, there's no lines being crossed here. Like, I am very much in a professional space.
Yeah.
And my girlfriends, you know, are with me while this is all happening. And they're like, you know, he's saying that because he like likes you, right? Yeah. And I'm like, this is why we need girlfriends sometimes. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know that that's it. Long story short, he meets me in the city right away. It's that like, I know you, you know me on like a whole different soul energetic level. The synchronicities that happened over these like 72 hours we were together were, you cannot make it up. So we end up like leaving in this relationship that I was totally like, this was not where, right. Yeah. And he has a very luxurious lifestyle. I'm just going to put it that way. And like, I flew private this whole year. I had, you know, a card at my disposal whenever I wanted anything. It was like, this is mine, this is yours. We're getting married. We're building a life. Like everything that my heart was like singing for was basically just like starting to like be on this platter. And for me, I'm like, I bust my butt in my business, you know, like this is my baby on top of my little babies. And he was very much telling me, I want you to be big. I want you to like, you know, be able to do all the things you want to do. And he sat with me because he's a businessman and he's like, what's your goal? Like, what do you want to do with the business? And I'm like, I want to elevate the business so I can speak on a global platform, basically, is like what I want. And that was after many conversations. This is kind of just where, you know, I grounded into is like, that's what it is. It's that global platform. And he's like, well, let's update it because there all of a sudden started becoming this almost like expectation within me of, well, some of the things you post are a little risque for like my world because he is in the patriarchy deeply. So like my boudoir shoots, which were empowerment shoots, he was like, maybe those aren't like, you know, like, do we need those up kind of thing? And because I fell so hard for this person so quickly, and I was like, this is my person, I had to sit there and I'm like, okay, like, I don't need to post boudoir. Like I can respect if my partner's like, that's not really my vibe. Yeah. So I took down the boudoir. Right. But then that was just the first thing of the wheel. Cause then it was the next thing. Then it was, I can't really post anything because of the privacy concerns of how he is and all of the things. So I'm living the life of like the dream that I have built and I can't share it at all. Except for like my closest friends. Yeah. And I am rebranding my business, which is great, while also getting told not to be too sensual, not to be too sexy, not to be too embodied, not to be too out there, right? And I'm just like in this battle of like, I know who the fuck I am. Like, I am like, I will tell you all of my things without any shame. But what started to become clear was that there was so much shame on his side and so many issues with things that it was just projected on me. And the things that kept coming up were these cycles of like, he felt shame about my past and like who I've been in my past. And I'm like, we're talking about things that like happened when I was like 20 years old. I'm almost 36. Yeah. And it just was like, just this consistent like judgment, right? Mm-hmm. And then it was just also to the point that we hit that it was like, I'll see and take my part only to hear, because then it's really about you. You shouldn't have done this. And it turned not good by the end. And I was in this space that I'm like, the last time I flew home with my boys over the summer, I'm on the private plane looking at my kids and I'm like, this is exactly what I've been manifesting, is like having me and my boys in this space that everything's taken care of, that we are like in this great life. And I'm watching the condo we lived in as I'm like flying out of Florida. And I'm just like, I don't know if I'm coming back there. Wow. I don't know if I'm ever going to come back there. And I felt it the morning I left. And 2 days later, I was supposed to turn around and come right back. So all of my stuff was there because we had basically moved in over the summer. And literally, we have a conversation. He gets like uptight about it. And I said, listen, I told you at the beginning of the summer, if this happened again, that I can't do this. Like, I can't keep holding my old self to the fire that doesn't even make sense anymore. Like, I love you enough to let you go. And I was met with anger. He was like, well, if that's how this is going to be, then like, we're just, we're done and I need time. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, this is not what I want at all. However, I need you to assure me that the cycles that we've been in are not happening again. Like, you're not going to tell me not to come down to Florida in 2 days. And I was met with silence. Right. And we know like silence is an answer in itself. Right. And so then, we talk for another hour. And by the end of the conversation, now that he has the control, it's like, well, maybe it's just best that we take some time. And I just need you to respect, that I need a couple days. Yeah. Did not hear from him. I'm like, is my stuff coming? Like, what's going on? He doesn't want to have any closure conversation. He shipped my things to me. And when I tell you that, thank God I have friends like y'all are to each other, I didn't feel any anger until my stuff got here. And it literally looked like someone took all of my like toiletry drawers, dumped them in a box. Oil was exploded all over clothes and shoes. Like, it was bad. Like, and he tells me the moving company did this. And I'm like, right. Like, so many, like unfoldings of just lies that have been told throughout the relationship, lies that have happened after. And I finally had him on a call and it was like, hey, like, I feel like I'm owed a conversation. I just spent so much of these last 10 months, like pouring into this, and now it's silence.
Yeah.
And the call was me being just like a mess and crying and being like, I see where I've taken my part in this. I see where I wasn't in my power. I see whatever. And he's like, I need you to know I'm not coming back to this. It's like, obviously we're not in a space to have a conversation. He's like, I just need a couple days. It's been almost 5 months since then.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's like, the unwind, as I'm sure, coming from any sort of toxic space, like in both of you, I'm sure can like relate to this, is so intense when you put like your heart and soul into these spaces only to like orbit out and then realize how much you were taking that actually wasn't yours, that actually like you were shrinking in spaces that weren't you. Right. And it's like, this is also where like anyone who's listening, like if you are in these spaces or you're coming out of these, like, please find your tribe, please find your people, please like listen to the podcast or go to Fem Tell All, because if it wasn't for like the circle that I have built around me, I don't know that I would have like gotten to where I am right now in this amount of time, much less been able to process like, what the fuck just happened? Like, I don't understand what's happening.
So devastating, and it's really debilitating when you invest so much of your time in your life with someone and creating a partnership. And
first, I just want to say I'm so sorry that you had to experience that and go through that, because that's never easy. It is helpful to have the right people around you when you are experiencing that, but it doesn't help those nights when you're alone by yourself and the pain that's physical and also emotional that you have to endure to heal. So I'm so glad that you're so healing. Sorry. And but I am sorry you had to experience that. Like kind of just to like, I guess, to provide you a place of comfort is just like, yeah, I think that unfortunately so many of us go through experiences like that because there are so many unhealed people in this world. So many people that feel they need to have control over another person for some reason or another because they have so many insecurities in themselves. Mm-hmm. So many people that want to hold power over somebody or abuse them emotionally by shutting down instead of communicating. Like, that to me is a form of abuse. You can't go silent on a partner. You can't not communicate. Even we talked in our last episode just recently about even while dating, like how ghosting is so like needs to be unnormalized, because having that hard conversation of, hey, it's not working, but like, so people aren't sitting there waiting and wondering, because the worst is like, maybe somebody hurts for a moment, like, but you have the conversation, you can kind of both move on. versus a person saying, well, maybe they're going to call, maybe they're going through something, maybe they're feeling this, maybe they're going through that, and all of the questions that kind of circle around it, which he also left you with after a relationship, ending it without any answers. Like you're left sitting there going, well, maybe I didn't do this, or maybe, and like, instead of it being like, no, we should have had the conversation. No, I deserve answers. No, like you're not supposed to treat somebody this way, much less somebody that gave them you gave your life to, somebody that you gave your space to. Like all of this is not acceptable. And like, I know those conversations are hard. I know they're uneasy and I know they're uncomfortable, but it's worse to make somebody experience this. And you don't also, on the other side of it, for him, he doesn't learn or heal. He doesn't grow. So he's gonna left be stagnant, and then he's gonna be that same partner to the next person, ruining more people on his path, as opposed to growing and finding a better way to communicate and handle these relationships.
Yeah. And that was exactly for us when we would have any upsets of things that would be bothering him. It would be these like 3-day stints where he would have a trigger. It would be an upset. And then it would be 72 hours of him unraveling and me being kind of in that coach role of like, do you want this? Like, what do you want? If you don't want this, I'll step out. But like, I feel like you're just self-sabotaging because you're triggered about something and you don't know how to process it. And, there'd be moments of like, I just need silence. And it would be like, I can't communicate with you for however long until you feel ready, but you can randomly send me messages, but I need to respect the silence for those times. I'm like, this is manipulative and this is abusive and this is like not okay. Like you can't, that has to change in relationships. Like that can't be a thing.
Completely.
Yeah, so true.
And to Ruth's point, something that personally drives me up a wall is like when people leave you with that to create your own narrative. And, a lot of us are so creative and so, imaginative, especially people that are heavy communicators. So it's very easy for me to come up with 10 scenarios of why they didn't get back to me, why they're ghosting me, and it's like, even if you gave me a reason, or even if you didn't give me a reason, but you at least said like, hey, I can't do this. I know that at the end of the day. And I'm not thinking like, oh, well, why can't he do this? Why is he ignoring me for 3 days? Does he really want to talk to me? And he just thinks this is the best thing to do? I don't know.
Yeah.
And
I think kind people also always tend to take it on themselves, right?
Yeah.
We'll be like, oh, well, it must have been me.
Yeah.
Like I must have said something or did something or affected them in a negative way. Like we tend, and like that's what's so hard, because you walk away with this self-blame. And again, coming back to the word of shame. We shame ourselves and saying like, oh, I'm the problem. Mm-hmm. And so like that's the fucked up part over it all, like, because the nicest, kindest people are the ones that are most likely to do that to themselves.
That's so true.
And also the ones that are most likely to be chosen by people like this, because they know that they can control and treat in that way.
That shit. It's true. They fucking find
it's like they have a radar.
They do.
Yeah.
It happens. And I know so many, all of the people in my life that have had these like tragic events like this happen to them. They're always like so warm, welcoming, kind, forgiving. Yeah. Like that's the thing. They look for people that are going to be forgiving of them, understanding of them.
And have those big energies too, right? Yeah. The energies that people are drawn to, because like they want that, they need to take from that. And so therefore like they're trying to like get some of it.
Yeah. They're leeches, you know, and they're looking for people that they can brag about, right? To their friends and be like, hey, look, isn't she gorgeous and smart and funny and all those things. But as soon as we threaten their masculinity, if they're not in their divine masculinity, or as soon as we threaten these things, like these preconceived notions about themselves, like that's where I think, like with my ex, he has himself convinced that he is a good person, and he's so good at it. He's so good at it that he has so many people around him convinced. But that, like, it's truly a Jekyll and Hyde moment where like the lies that happened to the other woman that came forward to me, that was like, hey, I've been sleeping with this guy for the last couple months. And I was like, huh? He was my boyfriend during that entire time.
Yeah.
And And it's just terrifying because to me and to my family, to my
You would have
friends,
never,
you would have never known, because he was so good at playing the role of the supportive, amazing boyfriend that adored me.
Legitimately, Brittany, like when they started referencing like the scheduling, he helped her move into a home and like literally was there with her family unpacking her stuff and then going off to Texas girl saying like, oh, sorry, I had to fly home because my grandma died, so I can't see you this weekend.
I am so sorry that you have dealt with that, because I have had very similar experiences too. And that is like, my brain doesn't wrap around how you do that.
Same. And it's like the last half of this year has just been a spiral of that, of like, and that's why I think I needed men to kind of show me, because I needed it from the masculine. My femininity and the people in my life have been my anchors, truly. And I'm like, and I found that in myself too, but I'm like, I need a man to prove to me that they're not going to be a piece of shit. Like, I'm sorry. And I have so many fantastic men in my life, like my brothers, my dad, I have uncles, you know, godfathers, things like that are so wonderful. And that's where I'm like, I know that it's not all men. Like, I'm not saying that by any means, but the men of this generation that I'm dating, I'm like, if this was the man that I was 10 toes convinced, like, he would never hurt me, let alone look at another woman, because he was so devout. And then to see and like see the timelines, like she showed me text messages where he's fully lying, voice memos where he like literally is lying to her. And he's like, yeah, Maddie, like we like broke up a while ago. Like it's been so long. And it's like, literally we've been dating for months. It was just so scary. And all of that to say is like, they convinced themselves. And so anytime we're threatening that perception of themselves, you know, if we're the mirror, right? And we're going, hey, you did something pretty fucked up, but like, I'm not mad at you for it. I'm just kind of trying to show you, like, you understand how I feel because you did this. And as soon as the mirror is brought to them and it shows anything unflattering, they're gonna self-sabotage and go even crazier and go even like harder on it, and then blame it on you, manipulate it, and be like, actually, you know what? I don't love you. I can't be in this relationship anymore because it was never real. And you're like, what? Or, and that's not even what happened to me, but like, you know, like those kinds of scenarios, or they're like, you did this, you're the one that got upset with, and you're like, no, your poor behavior and lack of communication skills and lack of accountability is what is leading us to this. Not.
And I do want to say, and like, we have a friend that just broke up with his girlfriend. And I want to also say, like, it doesn't always have to be the man doing it to the woman. Like, because my friend is a very masculine man, but because of that, I think so many times when we even look at men, we think that they can't be abused, and they can.
Oh, they can.
And I think like I want to make sure that we include that in the narrative sometimes, because when we talk about abuse, whether it's emotional, physical, like anything, like I think I even tend to forget like how it can happen to a man, because like they are more silenced, even so, because it's like it's so embarrassing to say it, or I should be able to handle this. Like, and now that he's broken up with her, and now that he's being more open and honest about it, I've seen footage that he recorded for his safety, because he's a man of color. And he was like, oh, if like she calls the cops, I just want to make sure like I don't get in trouble when she was the one hitting me. Like, and so it's really sad to know that it's happening at all. But like, I just want it to be very clear that it can happen to anybody. And we want like, it's not okay on anybody's side. It's not okay to ever put your hands on somebody, to ever put somebody down verbally. Like, it's never okay. Like, I don't care what gender you are. I don't care if you're a little girl that you think you can hit a man or throw things at him. It's not okay.
Yeah. That's so true. And, you know, I feel like there's a lot more conversation around this now than ever, luckily, because I do think that it is breaking. You know, I do think people are we are all, I think as women, I'm going to speak just from this point, and I know that there are some men that are here too, but I know like on a conscious level, a lot of the feminine is really remembering who we are and really coming into like boundaries and worth and our voice and our mission. And we are illuminating ourselves and each other in the most beautiful ways, and also illuminating where the patriarchy is not working, like where it is no longer going to be a thing, right? And we are creating this totally new earth in a sense. new relationships, new, styles of communication and all of that. So it doesn't matter male or female. It's like, find the space to communicate this and to talk about it and to heal from it and release and all of it, because it's the only way we break it, right? Like this has been silenced for so long. It just can't be anymore. Like it can't be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I completely agree with you, Brittany.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
No, I agree. And I love that. I love that we've joined forces too, Brittany, because I feel like you said, like when we met you two, we felt so kindred spirits with Kindle.
Yes. Kindle. You want to read about it.
Yeah. And like, I love that your mission is so aligned with ours as well. And like, even the way that you speak, and I can hear the passion in your voice and also hear what you've experienced, a lot of like what we've also gone through.
Yeah.
And like, I think that anybody listening, like if you're going through anything like this or need any support, like trust me, I'm sure between the three of us, one of us have gone through it, thought it, or heard about it,
or know someone.
And so please reach out if you need somebody to talk to or a community of support.
Yes. So I would love to shift gears, because I know we've talked lots about relationships. Thank you all for witnessing, all that came through here today. But I would love to shift gears into, looking forward, into this next year, and just kind of hearing, and so everyone can get a little bit more around you guys too, like, what are your goals personally, and maybe even in the business, if you feel so inclined to share, for this next year? Like, we are coming up into 2024, which is so wild to me, but I want to hear about goals and inspirations and all of the things.
I'm happy to. I'm happy to share. I know you are. And we actually have, not to shamelessly plug us, but we have an episode coming out before the new year as well about goals and all that stuff. But,
watch it.
But we're going to talk in here too about our personal goals. Like, health is such a huge thing for me, because I think like health truly is our wealth in so many ways. And that, that's sexual health, that's mental health, that is physical health, that is all the things. So I always really try and focus in on that with like my daily tasks. Daily, rituals are so important. And I feel like when I'm really on that shit, I'm in it, and I feel so good. And I'm like, life is so good. Like, I'm like, euphoric. And I'm like, why not feel like that all the time? So definitely, I like setting goals like that for myself and keeping to them. I love cooking too. I don't know if this is like too like mundane or,
no, I love it.
See her dishes, you would never use the word mundane.
But that's something that like, it truly brings me joy. And I think it does pop me into my femininity too. It's like creation, right? It's like the first thing, and like, I think that is something that I love tapping into. And it really reminds me of the matriarchs in my family too. Like my grandma used to bake when I was a kid. And so it's something that like, even though I never really had a super close relationship with her, that is something we did together. So I'm like, that is something that I like tapping into. And I 3 years ago in 2020, I had the goal for myself to make a new recipe every week. And I did it for all of 2020, all of 2021, and all of 2022. I took a break 2023. So I'm going back to it in 2024 and going to do a new recipe a week. And I think that's going to be really fun and challenging. And I love challenging myself in good ways. Because I think I asked for a challenge too many times, and then universe hears me, and I'm like, okay, no, like maybe like not
a little less.
Like maybe not that challenging. I'm like a little challenging, a little. Keep me on my toes a bit. So that is something that's a fun challenge for me. And I really want to work on I'm so thankful for my relationships, but like a plant, even your best performing plant in your house, like you need to prune and water and give her the sunlight and all the things. And that is something that like really resonates with me as far as friends. Like, they've done so much for me in this last year and the crazy roller coaster of what's happened and just in my life in general. And I'm so thankful. This is the best my relationships have ever been as far as friendships and whatnot. And I don't want to lose even a second of that. So really just diving into that and really expanding on that and making sure that I'm feeding into the relationships that feed me so deeply. What about you?
I love that. I would say somewhat similar. Like I definitely think that in this past year, my friend circle has gotten a lot smaller, but I think it's been so beautiful in the fact, like, I think the energy that's around me is so specific and strong and has pushed me forward. So I just want to keep like nurturing those strong relationships that I have. I think I just recently left one of my careers. That was more of a safety net for me. So I am taking this next year by the horns and just going really hard into all my creative endeavors and really making sure I put my full force into all of those. Just moved into a new place with the man. And
you guys did a big step this year. You know, it's been it will be a full year of them being together.
Yeah, December 18th will be a full year. When we first started dating, it moved really quickly for us, and we had set a goal for ourselves to move in by the time we got to a year, and we just moved in together, and we're about to hit a year. I'm sure in this next year there'll be some jewelry added.
Yes.
Not so subtle hints.
And then just like career wise, like absolutely like I said, creative endeavors, but Fem Tell All is like one of our biggest priorities. And it's one of the things I find the most joy in. Like, I never feel like it's work. Like, I get to hang out with my best friend and talk to her, and what the outcome that we've gotten from people's response to it has been so rewarding. And would just like to really grow that in this next year and really make big numbers and goals.
Yeah. And if you're, like you said, if we feel comfortable, I feel comfortable. We're building that community. We're monetizing. We are, like we are gonna like girl boss, not too close to the sun. Just a girl boss. Just perfectly where we're basking in this. And that is, that's not just a business endeavor, but it is a partial part of it, and this is a project we believe in. This is something we're passionate about, and we truly believe in doing. We both are have pursued and are currently in careers that we love, that we know are like kind of unorthodox as far as like people being like, what do you do for a living?
Explain again.
Like, do you have healthcare? Like,
no, we're fine now.
So like, that is something like we're adding on another one, and we've done it so with like such choice, with such specificity, and we've done it because we love this so much, and it's one of our passions, and we've already seen it benefit us so much, and we see it benefiting our community, and we want to just keep expanding on that.
I love. Yes, I am like here for this. I am holding all of these intentions with y'all. I love this, and I know we've kind of talked about just like the growth on the back end of when we did work around the business, right? And I just want to talk a little bit about the energy that's coming up this year. And I don't know that we really talked about this on our call. So this year is the year of karma, first of all.
I'm ready to catch him. Okay, I'm ready.
Right?
We are good people.
And you can tell when I have said this to people, I automatically know where they've been in their integrity, because there are some that are like, oh yes, year of karma. And there are others that are like,
crap.
I don't know about that. But it's the year of karma. And I'm like, I am similar. I'm like, let's cash in. We have been watering all of the seeds. I'm ready for the harvest. So year of karma, which is great. But also these first, like January to mid-March is going to be such I'm going to call it season of opportunity. And I really see this like new era of leadership activating like crazy in those first 90 days. And when we talked, I was like, Fem Tell All is coming up with us, and I'm very excited. And yes, like happy dances. And, so I just want to back all of these intentions, right? It's like, you guys are really, you're catalyzing at such a beautiful point. And for anybody that's listening or watching, we are coming into, as we're recording this, we're in the beginning of December. This is probably going to air just a little bit past. But, our next portal way energetically is 12/12. And it is the last portal of the year. it is also coming into, I think it's December 13th is Mercury retrograde. It's the last retrograde that we have of this year. We've had a lot. We actually had more retrogrades this year than we've ever had. And next year, we actually only have 3. So retrogrades energetically are the slowdown, introspective, what am I taking? What am I leaving? Right. And this year was a lot of that, as I'm sure you guys probably felt in your personal life too. Right. And business is like, this is working. Well, now it's not working. Right. And it was just this constant, like, wow, alchemy. But this next year, like, we are really getting called to step in the avatar that we want to carry through the year. Cause like, we're not going to have a whole lot of like, kind of, I don't want to say redo energy, but that like slow down. Is it working? Is it not working? Like, that's only going to come a couple times next year, which is beautiful for those of us who are, you know, not loving Mercury retrograde. I was born during a Mercury retrograde, so I actually have the opposite effect to most people. So Mercury retrogrades for me are very resourceful and restful and very clear. Tech still messes up, but all that to be said, like, you guys are really, I think it's no coincidence that you are expanding into all your creative endeavors and you're coming into this, like, we're ready to birth the business, like in a real time way, in such a beautiful energy. And this year is really, I think, the year of like, of a fluent, spoken, authentic, embodied people. And like, I think that the women are really on the rise with this. So for those of you who are listening and watching, please go down to the description and we will link the podcast. Maybe we can even link the goals episode if that's not played yet by the time we do this. And we'll also link like socials for you two so you guys can connect with people. Is there anything else you guys want to like riff on or close out, any messages before we close up? We've talked about so much.
I thank you for opening up to us too. Like, thank you for sharing your story with us and being vulnerable with us. And like, I again, like, just want to hold a space for you and let you know that you're loved and cared for. And as you continue going through your healing process, please know that you found 2 friends that want to be there for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love you guys. I really appreciate the witness. It's like, I have gotten deeper in this episode about all the things than I have in any other episode. So really got the tea this time. So.
and it's, I think that's energy, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what we're meant to do,
Yeah.
you know, not only you on this platform, but us. And we joined these 2 amazing this 2 amazing platforms. And I think we're doing it. The magic came up because of that, you know, and I just want to sincerely thank you for creating this space for us and being so kind and welcoming to us the entire time, for your reading that you did for us so generously.
Thank you so much.
Like, that was so
meant so much.
so helpful and so sweet and so generous again. And we just appreciate everything that you've done for us so far, and we are so glad that you're a friend now, and we can't wait to see that blossoms. And thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone for listening.
Yeah, truly.
Yes, thank you guys so much. Yeah, we will put all of the information down below, and thank you guys for being here. We'll definitely have to have you back on, because I know people are going to eat this episode up in the best way. I'm going to come on Fem Tell All too, so we're going to just spread all the love.
Exactly.
Well, y'all, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you two so much for being here, for witnessing and sharing your magic. Today has been just incredible. I am on fire with energy. And so thank you for creating that with me. For those of you who are new to the podcast, and this is the first time you've been on here, thank you for experiencing such a beautiful Brittany Renee experience today on the Conscious Awakening Network. We will see you guys next week, Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard. Have an amazing and magical day. Bye.